Nothing.
So,
I was just doing a phrasing moment. What do you want from me?
well, not the other end, that's for damn sure. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 464 of the Dead Robot Society. Terry Mixon here. Joining me, Paul E. Cooley. How are you doing, man? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
What's that, Sonny? What'd you say? What's that?
You've went out and gotten your hearing aids taken care of today. How did
Oral assistance.
You know, it sounds dirty when you say it like that.
No, that would be oral assistance. Two completely different things.
What do they do in that office anyway?
The same thing they've always done in this office.
Not your office, their office.
This is my office.
Where you got the oral assistance.
Oh, the oral assistance. Yes. Okay. All right. I get what you're saying now. Oh boy. Yeah, it's going to take me a while. I can hear it sounds really tinny, and they tell me that passes, but it's because my ear is hearing things it hasn't been hearing for a long time.
Just think, now you're going to hear what your wife is actually muttering when she walks away from you.
Yeah, I can hear better, but that doesn't make it it doesn't let me understand words.
Now you hear
Actually, this will be interesting. I've been kind of depressed about the fact that, you know, it's one of those deals where it's like, I'm 46 years old. I should not be wearing hearing aids at 46. And it's kind of like when they told me I needed glasses. And that was a long time ago. It was just one of those reality check things where it's like, I had 2020, my body was working just fine, I was in good shape, and then 30 happened. It's all been downhill since 30. Every goddamn bit of it. So it's just the way that works. Now the only thing depressing about this is the price tag.
Just think, though, you could actually have, gone whole hog and got the best there. You could get the Tim Taylor version of hearing aids. Was it the Binford 3000?
Binford 3000. It's so powerful it actually snatches sound from the air. You can see the sound waves, getting gathered in like a black hole does to light. Yeah, that version, because more power. Wow, that sounds really weird in my ears.
So, other than your hearing aids, how is your life doing, sir?
Well, now that we have the roof patched, the contractor found the hole in the shingle yesterday, called out one of his buddies, and he came today. But that did not save me from the freaking half inch of rain that fell yesterday here. It was like half inch or an inch of rain. It was ridiculous. It was a gully washer
down here too. Yeah.
I had to put a plastic trash can underneath the leak, and it filled up probably about 4 or 5 inches of water in it. So it was kind of scary. I took all the video of it too, in case I need it for insurance purposes, but they passed the leak. Now we got to wait a day or two for the wall to dry out again before they can finish sheetrocking it. And then after that, hopefully this nightmare will be over and I can get back to not worrying about the house as much. Right now, I'm just completely freaked out. So
how big of a space of wall are you talking about in the wall for the sheetrock?
It's basically 2 panels.
Okay, so 4, 8, 10, fairly significant size sort of looking thing. Because I seem to remember the panels are like 8 by 4 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's really and it went down the center of 2 of them.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, pretty much. So the new stuff will take care of that, and apparently they make sheetrock these days that's mold resistant.
This will be a good thing when we get around to replacing our storm damage and figuring out how that's going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, they've made significant strides since when this house was built. And of course, you know how it is with a builder. They usually use the cheapest shit they can get their hands on anyway.
Sure.
So anyway, we'll get all that done. And Flames is with my beta readers.
Woo!
Yeah, Sue Bayman just tore through the book and got me the notes, so I was able to incorporate those yesterday. And so created the ebooks using Vellum. That was kind of cool.
What about the print version? Did you create that too?
I just generated, I think did I generate a PDF from it? I can't remember if I generated a PDF from that or not.
Since I know that it does do print versions as well, I was curious whether you'd actually tried that.
No, I haven't tried it yet. I have not tried it yet. At some point, maybe when we get Flames cover and everything, I'll play with it. But I just don't know. I just don't trust it. And I sure as shit.
That's curious. It does so well in ebooks. Why would you not trust it for print? That's just odd.
Well, okay. What I was really talking about is that I don't trust that new Kindle thing, the Kindle to print.
Oh, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying.
No, Vellum for print.
I know what Vellum will do.
I'm just talking about that. You upload it through CreateSpace through your regular process. I'm not talking about changing that. I'm just talking about generating the PDF as opposed to not. That's all I was talking about.
Yeah, I haven't played with that yet, so I'm gonna have to. When Flames gets ready to actually go up there to CreateSpace, then I'll have to play with that and see how well it does. It should do fine. It should do fine. I can't imagine it wouldn't. So we'll just have to get that done. Scott Pond has been making noise that he's apparently pushing certain projects aside to get some concepts together for Flames, which we're thinking of calling Gears Inferno.
Gears Inferno?
Ghere. That's how I pronounce it.
Okay.
Is that a better title?
I think that it is a better title. I think that the strange spelling is going to make searching for it a trial for somebody.
Yeah, but I don't know how else to do it because Mesopotamian's weird.
Yep. It is what it is. There's not much you could do about that, I'm afraid.
Well, everything is just like, okay, we could call it Gibbles Inferno, but then everybody's going to think I'm saying Gerbils Inferno.
Well, just cut to the chase and just make it Gerbils Inferno now and just run with it.
You see those little fuckers from the what is it? This Kia Soul commercials.
That's right. Welcome to the first level of hell. Or I guess it's a circle of hell. The first circle of hell.
First circle of hell. Yeah. Well, I don't know. That sounds more like the fourth or fifth circle of hell to me. The first circle is assholes who talk on the cell phone in the elevator. But that's just
yeah. All right. So you've got Flames off. What's your next project? What are you actually working on?
Back to destruction when I'm not working on the quote unquote day job, managing contractors or pulling my hair out over the state of my house. I got about 1,200, 1,400 words on destruction this morning. And man, it's really problematic though, Terry. After I finish Flames, it's like I want to work on track 9.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
I want to work on this other shit. It's like, and of course, if Flames doesn't sell well,
the project was mostly completed before you went back to it.
True.
You haven't wasted that much time and effort on it. Let it go on its way. Now pay the bills. Yeah,
I don't consider it to be a waste, even if it doesn't sell. It's just
it's a project of love.
It's
except that it may not do well financially. It is what it is. Now you've put that out. Go ahead and go back to stripping your way through college.
Go back to shaking that money maker, baby.
Exactly so.
Get me some monster goodness.
Anyhow.
What about you, Mr. Mixon?
Let's see. First, my life has been chaotic because of the little black stray that's been hanging around my patio. We finally caught him Sunday. I took him to the vet on Monday to get his checkup done to see how he was. And unfortunately, he is FIV positive. So that introduces a layer of complication because finding some place that's going to take him is going to be difficult. And keeping him introduces at least some level of risk to the other cats that I already have. But I'm not going to do anything other than those two options. Either I'm going to keep him, or someone that either doesn't have cats, already has an FIV positive cat, or just has older cats that this is not going to be an issue for, is going to adopt him. One or the other. Something will be figured out. My current plan, he's very friendly. Today is day 3. It was about this time, a little bit earlier. He's only been in my possession about 48 hours now. But he'll come out and he'll let me pet him. He'll walk around and brush against my legs. He is an exceptionally friendly cat. So I have high hopes that integration will not be a stressful thing. Mm. And the first step of integration, of introducing him to another cat, once we get to that point a few months down the road, may be me putting a screen door on my office and keeping him in here with Minnie. Minnie is a solitary cat that doesn't want to have anything to do with other cats. She doesn't mind being in the same room with them, but that is probably the safest thing. She's 13 years old. Mm. He's not going to go after her. She's not going to be aggressive to him. There's no reason that a deep bite, it can only really, the real chance of transmission is through a deep bite. So if it's not unspayed males fighting, the odds of transmission are low. So that's that's going to be my intermediary plan. And we'll see. I'd rather him be adopted out to a place so he doesn't have to be restricted, but we'll just have to see how that plays out.
And folks, if you haven't seen this cat, go check out Terry's feed, because wow, that's a cute kitty. The cute guy.
Exceptionally cute kitty. There is one of our listeners has contacted someone, a relative of theirs in the neighborhood, and they are considering whether or not it's the right thing to do to try to integrate Little Black Stray into their household. But they have an older cat that has kidney disease, and they have a 10-year-old that's healthy. And so they've got some research and some consideration to do before they make that decision. It may happen. It may not happen. One way or the other, the days for this cat being uncared for and unloved are over.
Yay.
I'll make it work one way or the other.
I love it when an animal finds a good home. It's awesome. I know we've never fostered an animal, but we've gotten all of ours. Well, not all of ours. We got the majority of ours from the shelter. So, and they turn out to be, really awesome. Luna was in such a bad space when we got her, and so was Indy, but they ended up being great friends, and it's just wonderful. Fuck going to the breeders. I like the mutts. They have a lot less problems.
Oh yeah, it's true. The situation literally makes me cry because I worry. I'm a worrier by nature. So I worry about what's going to happen to him, but his existence is safer now than it has ever been. He's going to be a friendly cat for somebody, whether that's me or someone else. And more pictures, of course, will go out because the internet is made for cats.
So they tell you.
That's what I've heard. All of our cats are rescues of one type or another. We didn't go and buy one of these cats from anyone. They were all brought to us or came to us in one way or another. And if it's fated that Little Black Stray stays with us, so be it. We will make it happen. We will make it work. He's friendly enough to where I have high hopes that integration will not be a problem once we've spayed him. I let him out yesterday, and he got over to the door where the other cats were outside, and there was some hissing from the other side. He did not hiss. So that's also a positive sign.
Well, good.
Anyway, writing.
Writing, that thing that we do.
Yeah, that thing we do. By the way, I had a root canal last week and part 2 of it this morning. So between the root canal and the first part of it left me in pain for 3 or 4 days. And then the cat issue came at the end of it. So this last week I've gotten no writing in, and it's eaten up all the space inside of my schedule that I padded in. So I need to get my ass busy and get writing so that I can get a Battle for Terra written by the end of the month. if I'm going to get that done. If I don't get it written by the end of the month, I have to start on the Glenn project for book 2, and I'll have to finish up this book after hours, so to speak. So I'll try to get it done. If it's not finished by the end of the month, it'll be very close to being finished. I know.
Oh my God. Excuse me.
Oh, am I boring you? I'm sorry.
No, it's just it's that time of day. It's been I didn't sleep worth a shit. My apologies. That was very unprofessional.
That's okay. It's all right. The audiobook, the audio version of the Empire of Bones Saga Volume 1 with books 1 through 3 and the short story Fist of God is actually out in the wild.
Yay.
So it's out there now. What else is going on? I'm listening to audio for Heart of Vengeance. At least I listened to the first chapter of it. So I got tagged with being the audio proofreader for that. See, that's what happens when you're the below the fold author.
Yeah, but you're also making a shitload of royalty percentage on this, so
I am totally doing it, so I have no complaints. Besides, I could listen to Jeffrey Caffer go, and now we're going to go to the grocery store. Bananas. Okay, he's just got that. He's not as good. Sorry, Jeffrey. You're not as good as Veronica, but that's a burden we all have to live with.
Oh, damn. You're just too kind to her.
Well, of course I'm kind to her. She's awesome.
I smack her around whenever I can.
To be clear, the choice of who to get for doing the audio version for this was not my call. This was Glenn's call. He's the producer. He's the publisher. I didn't have any input into that. So it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I have to do what I have to do.
He chose a perfectly good narrator, though.
He did. Jeffrey is a great narrator, and I'm sure that the book is going to be awesome.
Yay!
Yay! Anything else? I finished the second anthology in the Four Horsemen universe is out, so my story that's in that is available. Forbidden Science, and it's just as bad as you would think, just based on the title, just that bad. Any book that starts with any story that starts with the word antimatter.
Yeah, there we go.
It's going to be bad, right?
There we go. There we go.
Anyway, Paul, let's go ahead and cut to the chase. We had so many questions sitting there when we wrapped up the last episode that we decided to do a second episode to answer more of the questions, just to weed the number of them down. And because, we just couldn't think of anything else to talk about because that's how we roll. Okay, that's not really what happened, but I knew it would make you laugh.
Oh, my God. All right, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So, Paul, last time we talked, we answered questions, but we didn't even really whittle down the pile very much. So I think we should do that again.
All right, fine. We'll go through some of these other things. All these questions, these patrons, and
well, I think we should address the first one, the one that is obviously deserving of the most attention. I immediately spotted that one out of the pile, and we should go ahead and just cover that first. People are wanting to know where they can get the autographed Sailor Cooley pictures.
The answer is very simple. Just go to your local alternate universe where they're available and purchase them there.
But do you get a royalty cut from that?
My alternate self does, yes. In that other reality. That other reality where Paul is making, money hand over fist.
I bet that Paul is making bank.
That Paul probably is making bank. That's why I can't have that kind of karma.
I think that the next time you go to something like Dragon Con, you should go as Sailor Cooley.
Yeah, no. No, I've been in drag at one con. I'm not doing that ever again. Thank you very much. That's not happening.
Was it a negative experience for you?
It was for everybody who had to see me.
Oh, I don't think that they agreed with that. I think that they all thought it was stinking hilarious.
I think I killed an entire bottle of Jack Daniels all by myself while in that outfit because of how anxious, crazy, nervous I was.
Tell you what, if you ever go dressed up as Sailor Cooley, I'll go ahead and get those heels in bustier, and we'll just hit the town, paint the town red.
Oh my God. Oh, the horror. Oh God. I need to lose about 100 pounds before I try that again. Thank you very much. Jeez, I make an ugly enough woman without making an ugly, completely out of shape, horribly disfigured woman. Thank you very much.
You know, I would totally not care what I look like because I would just be so focused on how uncomfortable I could make you.
That's probably true. I think we've had this conversation before. You could have fun at an insurance convention.
I think I could.
You probably could. Well, what are the should we go through these questions?
Let's go through real questions.
Real questions. Okay. I will read them off, so to speak. Nicole Deletes, I'm probably slaughtering your name, asks, how do you navigate writing a multi-genre novel without going insane? She claims hers is a mixed mess of genres. She likes to call it the bastard child of Law and Order and Supernatural.
Genres are marketing. They're not really storytelling, because you figure out what genres you're mashing together once you've finished writing the story. So the answer is write the story that it needs to be, and then try to figure out where to shelve it.
I have a completely different take on this because I actually do this. Flames and Closet Treats. Do what now?
School me, Miss Cooley.
Oh, school me. Really? You have to make a decision, and the story will dictate this, on whether to push the supernatural. Is it going to be upfront? Do the main characters know that it's supernatural, or are they stumbling into something that's supernatural by virtue of taking on a mystery or a case or something along those lines? That's where you make the line of demarcation. If it's a magical world, or world where everybody's aware of the supernatural, then basically you're just writing a detective story with those tropes around it. And that's fine. So focus on the detective story and then weave in that other stuff, which is how I do it anyway. Even if I was writing a completely science fiction story, but the main character is a detective, the detective part is the most important part of that. The sci-fi stuff around it is just setting. It's just setting and technological devices that the detective uses or whatever else. That has no bearing on anything. That's not multi-genre. That's just basically saying that I've written a detective story that takes place in a science fiction setting. So it's mystery, detective, sci-fi. What's the problem?
Doesn't sound like a problem to me.
If you're going to write police procedural that takes place in the now, but you're bumping up against supernatural or something that could be supernatural, it's really not all that difficult. It's really a question of what kind of clues are you leaving for the main characters? What kind of clues are they following up? Where does it take them? It's not really that much of a problem. I mean, hell, Dresden is essentially that, except he's very well aware of the world around him and the supernatural trappings with it. But to have characters bump into that when they're not aware of it, then you can have a lot of fun, because you can add a lot of suspense to it, where the entire time they're wondering if they're losing their minds or if this is real. I mean, horror movies and suspense thrillers are just all over the place and very popular, that, ones that do this exact thing. They leave the reader or watcher wondering if the character is insane that's seeing all this crap, or if it's really going on. And that's another way that you can kind of have fun with it. But just because it has tropes from several different genres shouldn't complicate it. The story is the story. So just add what you want to it and what makes sense for the story, and don't even worry about it.
You just basically violently agreed with me.
Yes, except I had concrete examples, whereas you didn't have jack shit. You just had some kind of pedantic crap and then went on your way. The Flames and Closet Treats are very much this. Very much this. So, and there are a bunch of other books out there like it, with those same kind of things. So go look for examples, but it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. It shouldn't be. If you have specifics, then add them to the Facebook post, please. But thank you for leaving that, Nicole. Luke Coaster asks, and I'm probably slaughtering that name too, sorry. How can I write faster and make better use of my limited writing time?
letting you lead on this one.
Oh, you're letting me lead on this one.
I have an answer, but you know me, I'll throw my answer right out there. I'm just going to let you lead off with this, though.
So since Terry has been a full-time schmuck for going on 2 years now, screw that guy. When I was riding the black, I was juggling a job that had me on 24/7 on call, where I frequently had nights that I spent at the office doing things for 4 or 5 hours on top of it. I was exhausted. I was angry. I was frustrated. And I wrote like a crazy man, because what I would do is at lunch, almost every lunch, I would go and I would write. I would go to my favorite bar, have lunch there, and I would write 1,000 words. I would come home when I came home, and I would, after I got stuff done around the house and everything else, I would write another 1,000 words. I mean, the black just happened because I would not stop and would not let anything get in my way. When you have a family, this gets tougher. And I don't have kids, so, but I can speak to this. If you do have kids, you've got a lot of more responsibilities. You've got things like taking them to school. You got after school programs. You have all these different pressures on top of you for your time. And I know a lot of parents who basically, they get home from work, they get done dealing with the kids, and there's no energy left. It's just they thump in the bed and they're out until they have to start it all over again. So then the question is thrown back at you. When can you find those moments? And I think you're going to have to train yourself. I know Scott Roche does this, where he will use something like Ride or Die, and he will get, 400 or 500 words at a pop in 15 minutes because he's trained himself to do that. So it can be done. It's just really a question of discipline and figuring out when you can get it done. And of course, that sounds a lot easier than it is. I understand that. But if you really want to be a writer, you have to write. And that means you're going to have to find those moments. And it may be just as simple as telling your spouse, if you live with one, hey, I need 30 minutes alone. Please give me 30 minutes alone. And then go do it and shut everything else off. Tell the kids, whatever mommy or daddy needs 30 minutes, go play in traffic.
That'll work out well.
That'll work out well. So I can, have some alone time, have some creative time, and get your stuff done. I think that's just I think you need at least 30 minutes a day that's just you and doing what you want to do. Because I think that's the only way to be a healthy human being, is to have those moments. Otherwise, man, it'll make you old really fast. Just see how much gray hair I have. Because I've been through so many jobs where it was 20 hours a day of work, come home, die, and get up and do it again. And you can't do it for forever without just completely becoming unrecognizable as a human being.
Thank you for enriching corporate America.
Yeah, all I did was make some other fucker rich so he could lay me off when so he made sure he didn't give a single dollar of his fucking salary. No, I'm not bitter or anything. Don't kill yourself to make another asshole rich. It does get you nothing. There, I've ranted for the day. Okay.
My answer, I was letting you go first.
Sorry, yes. We should take your non-valid opinion seriously. So give it to us.
Just indulge me for a second here. You could go ahead, and the way I look at that is you've got to use your time management skills to find time to write. You've got to make it a priority. You've got to go ahead and jealously guard a little block of time to get some done. That's how you find time to write, is you make time to write. And you make the world and set boundaries. You make the world respect your need to actually write during that little bit of time.
So basically, you just said what I said.
Sure.
Next question. Ark Whalen asks, and I'm always worried I'm going to mispronounce somebody's name, and I think I've slaughtered at least 3 so far. I'll slaughter more. My apologies. He asks, at what point does torturing your characters with trials and tribulations go from necessary and entertaining to ridiculous or even distasteful?
That seems like a very slippery slope when you're talking to Paul Lee Cooley.
My readers expect me to do terrible things to my character.
And they're going to get more and more shocked because there seem to be more and more characters actually making it out alive.
It's a lie.
No, it's true. It's kind of scary, actually. I was thinking about that Sunday when somebody took me to task for what I did in Closet Treats, and I was like, I really haven't written another book quite like that one. The Black ends on a big ass cliffhanger in a lot of ways, and all the Black books do to a certain extent, which is fine. But the first one had the huge cliffhanger where you're left wondering where these, what happens next. So Derelict's body count is really low so far. It won't be for too much longer. Trust me, it's gonna be bad. Anyway, Terry, when do you think you go too far? When do you go too far? Is there a too far?
Yes, there is a too far.
Okay, what's the line? Do you know where the line is?
The line is unfortunately a personal taste sort of thing.
So it's like porn.
It kind of is like porn. When it crosses over between making things difficult for your character and just becoming an exercise in sadomasochism. Only you can determine where that is, and the readers have to help you find the line. If you find yourself doing it simply because you need to pile on more and more and more, maybe you are going a little too far. But without knowing the specifics, who can really answer that question?
So here's what I would say. Go look at Voltaire. Go read Voltaire's Candide.
Don't do it.
Yes, absolutely do it. And the reason is Voltaire wrote that book is to lampoon the mindless optimism of the age he was living in. Whereas all these horrible things going on, but nobody would talk about them. Life was great. No matter what happened, life was great. And you can tell it's satire. You can tell it's parody because of those reasons of what he does. And basically, Candide is the main character, and he Forrest Gumps his entire way through this novel without anything really bad happening to him, but everyone around him just suffers these ridiculous catastrophes. And I mean, they're just insane. And he just kind of bumps along going, life is good, life is great, wonderful, wonderful. And all these people who suffer these horrible catastrophes are just coming up to him and saying, life is great, life is wonderful. I got raped by 100 pirates. It's just, what? It's just this fucked up mess. And it's something to read, but I mean, that's where it goes too far, and it goes too far on purpose because it's not realistic at all. It's just bouncing all over the place. And if you're writing a book like that, you can get away with it. Carl Hyacin gets away with ridiculous things in his books, and people love him. He's got antagonists who are just way over the top. A guy gets an arm chewed off and ends up replacing it with a weed whacker. I mean, it is just completely jacked up.
Is his name Ash?
No, his name is not Ash.
Oh.
At least I don't remember his name being Ash. Anyway, the bottom line is they can get away with that because of the type of book they're writing. Now, this is the Charlie Brown Lucy problem. Okay, if Lucy really wanted to mess with Charlie Brown's head, she would let him occasionally kick the football. She might let him kick the football 2 times in a row and then not give him anything for a month and then come back to this. And yes, I'm stealing this example from Stephen King's Wastelands. So the bottom line is that if you really want to torture your characters and you want to keep the reader engaged, there have to be some wins.
Yes.
They don't have to be big ones, but there has to be some wins. If you don't have the wins, then you're sitting there going, well, this is just awful. This character is never going to go anywhere, because you have to have the wins to also grow, because otherwise it becomes too depressing. I think there has to be some reason for us to root for the character. If we know they're never going to win anything, I think it kind of defeats the purpose. Or you're writing a Nietzsche novel. I don't know which. Or maybe Jean-Paul Sartre. you have to have these kinds of wins. Terry's shaking his head because
No,
he
I
doesn't
agree
even
with
know who
you.
those
I
people
agree
are.
with you. I had one of those brainstorming moments where I had an idea for a story that I'm never going to write. But I think you should. I totally think you should write it.
You know, I keep hearing this. Oh, Paul Cooley needs to write this book. Like, no.
What if someone out there had that type of good luck that you were talking about? Bad things just didn't happen to them, but it was powered by stealing the good luck from everyone around them. So these, wildly improbable things happen to anyone that's around this guy. Just even, walking through the supermarket, he could find $20 and somebody would have a can fall off a shelf on top of their head or something like that. And you could just go absolutely nuts writing this story, because the story, the drama wouldn't be about him trying to succeed at something himself. It's because he cares for this girl or he cares for this other person, and he's got to try to find a way to make his horrible good luck not ruin her life.
Yeah, see, that's a good short story, I think. That's a really good short story idea, actually. I'm sure somebody's done something similar, but
I'm sure they have.
I'm betting that would be a lot of fun to write. I would do, horrible, awful. Oh,
yes, you would.
I would do.
So you would have a succubus or something inhabit his body and do something like that.
No, what I would do is I would have this main character do what they do, and then the girl or boy they're trying to impress is a succubus or incubus. That's the way I would do it.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm just that much of a dick. But that's the kind of thing I would do to the characters. Oh my God.
Oh, okay. Cooley, douche nozzle.
Yeah, douche nozzle, douchebag extraordinaire. How many Christopher Winder asks, how many threads left unresolved is too many if you're writing the first book in a series?
I think you better close out most of it. You should leave some things unresolved, and you can even leave major things unresolved, but there has to be a sense of closure. If you've got too many things unresolved, then it doesn't feel like you actually finished the book.
Right.
It feels like you finished and split a book that really was one book into two. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. I am that guy.
I wasn't going to say that, but I was sitting here thinking it the entire time.
No, when I saw this question, I was like, where is that line? I think that it just depends on what you're writing. If you're writing a series like Terry's Empire of Bones, then Terry needs to leave a couple of dangling threads to go on for the next books. And he needs to leave the reader with some questions like that. But the main story arc always gets completed.
Yes.
Always gets completed. That is really important for a long-running series if you're going to do it. I think that is the real way to do it. If you're writing something that is really one overarching arc, then the mini arcs may split off into different threads that you just kind of have to decide where you want to end the book. And it's okay to leave. If you're writing a saga like I'm doing with Derelict, I think it's okay to do that. I have real problems with it because I don't like doing that. I'd like to get the whole goddamn thing done before I put it in front of the reader. And I have some readers who probably will never, ever read anything I write again because of the way I ended Derelict Marines.
You bastard.
Yeah, me bastard. But at the same time, I've had people come up to me at the booth at Staple. I have people send me emails. I have people tweet me. I have people go to my Facebook author page saying, I burned through book 1 and 2. You son of a bitch. Where's book 3? Because that's how you get it. If you give them enough rope, and the first book in a series is always difficult anyway to know where to stop it. But in the way I did the Derelict stuff, because I released those books so close together, and the big push happened at the same time that I released Tomb, the big book bub for Marines came out. Those people got, 2 books worth. They got 182,000 words of fiction for the story. And so they weren't as miffed as about where book 1 ended. Did I piss off people? Oh, you better believe it. And how many threads did I leave undone? A shitload. An absolute shitload. But the overarching, the main arc of that story of the first book was to get them to the goddamn ship, to get them to the derelict. That was the whole purpose of that book. So it did that. I didn't stop before they got there. It was about the Marines themselves. It was titled that way. It's character driven. Their job is to get to Mira and do what they do. They get there, and then hilarity ensues. And then I cut the cord because I wanted to, actually make some money. So if not, I could have spent another 6 to 9 months writing the rest of Derelict if I wanted to, which I would have done in other circumstances. But you do have to kind of figure out exactly what you're trying to do and where the end is. And if you're plotting out a series, maybe you don't know what the next book is. But are those dangling threads big or small? Because some of those small threads, people were like, oh, well, maybe he'll take that up in the sequel. And then Terry, for instance, may not touch that thread again for 4 books.
And then I drag it out and go, hello.
And then he drags it out, and it completely changes the rest of the series. So
it totally does.
So I think there's an art to it, and I think the more you read, you find writers that do this really well. Terry's not one of them, but you'll find writers who do this very well. Terry is good at this, and it'll come more instinctually. I don't really think about. I'm concerned about what plot threads I'm trying to do. Some of those plot threads I know I'm not going to address because they're 2 books down the way, or there's something that if I address that plot thread, it would ruin the rest of the books. And so maybe that's that particular plot thread I'll come with at the the very end of the series. So it just kind of depends on what kind of writer you are and what kind of story you're telling. I think.
I know that as far as what I'm doing, I don't even consider what plot threads I'm leaving open and which ones I'm leaving closed as I'm writing the novel. I will look at the main story arc of the novel, and I'm just pantsing my way through it. So it's going to get resolved, and the pieces are going to fall where they do. Whatever helps me accomplish closing up the main plot threads may or may not be resolved depending on how it actually falls out. I've got a Word document that has a couple of pages of places where I've noted things that I've just left hanging. Things, little bits of fact or little bits of something that's going on that may get used at some later point in time. And when I'm writing a story and going through it, occasionally one of those will pop up and go, that would really screw this situation up for the characters. Let's drag that plot thread back in here and make some fun out of it. So that's how I choose which ones to bring back to life. It's the ones that have the most drama at the moment that I'm writing.
And they're the ones that are most interesting, the ones that really have the way to get there. I may, with Derelict, after I get Destruction done, I may go ahead and write a short novel that is just about the trio. And I may do it just because it would be good to get another book out there, and it would kind of set some things up. It wouldn't spoil Derelict at all. It would just give the readers of Derelict a better idea of what's going on around the universe at that, while all this is taking place, because there's a lot of questions that people have, and I don't know how I'm going to answer them without that book. So I may very well do that, but that would address plot threads that haven't been completely followed up, or plot threads where it's left dangling because the characters can't answer the question yet. And that's another thing about what kind of book are you writing. Can the characters actually not just should you conclude this plot thread or finish it, can you do that in this book? If you can't, then obviously leave it dangling and go after it in the next book of the series or some other book down the way. This is very subjective. It depends on exactly what you're writing. But I would not ever close every plot thread, because you never know when you're going to say, damn, I wish I'd done this with the ending so I could write this other book with these characters again. You got to kind of get there and figure out exactly what that is. And for Terry and I think it's pretty instinctual now because we've done enough books. But I think for a new writer, this can be kind of tricky, but I wouldn't worry about it. I would let your beta readers tell you if you cross the line, because you may not be able to see it. And that also goes back to the trials and tribulations thing. I think the readers, the beta readers of your work are going to be able to tell you about that better than anything else. So just keep that in mind. All right. J.R. Hanley asks for a blog on writing good space combat. How do you keep it straight?
Was that a question?
How do you keep it straight at scale without being boring?
Straight at scale. What does that even mean?
How do you keep it straight, comma, at scale, comma, without being boring?
I'm not understanding the question.
All right. Fine. I will try and tackle this. Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle wrote a fantastic book called The Mote in God's Eye.
Mm-hmm.
The Mote in God's Eye started out, and I actually read the novella. Well, it was a novella actually. That was in There Will Be War or something like that, and it was the original first 5 or 6 chapters of A Mote in God's Eye, and was like 18 to 20,000 words easy. They cut it. And here's why. Because it was all about space combat. It was all about space combat between a Navy and a rebel fleet. And it was interesting, but man, did it not move. And I know why they cut it. I mean, Mote in God's Eye was probably 200,000 words. And if I remember correctly, Larry Niven or Jerry Pournelle, I don't know which one of them said it, but basically it came down to, yeah, we love this particular deal, but it did not belong in this book because it just didn't do anything for the rest of the story. Now, here's what's interesting. The rest of the story, The Mote in God's Eye, refers to this incident that they wrote, that they didn't put in the book. So they kind of crossed this weird, funky line where they had to go back and explain what happened at that very beginning piece, and without having included it in the book. And one of those writers, I don't know which one, I distinctly remember this, wrote a sentence in the paragraph during this whole combat thing about how many hours space combat takes, because it's not like in Empire Strikes Back or the Star Wars universe or even BSG, where the ships are chasing each other around and doing all this. You have to plan if you're doing realistic space combat, those ships are going to have to, if they're going at significant speed, they're going to have to think maybe an hour or two ahead before the next move. It's not like a split-second thing. It's not this, that, and the other. And I think most of the good sci-fi kind of takes that into account. You have to plan. It's like moving a ship on water. You think a battleship or an aircraft carrier can make a turn on a dime? No, they have to plan for that. It may take up to 30 minutes for them to turn the ship. It's possible. Depends how big the ship is. And if you're talking about spacecraft, then you've got the zero G problem. You've got how much thrust do you have available from which directions? And then, of course, maneuvering thrusters go out or anything else. Now the ship is stuck going in a straight line in 3D space. Can you have a straight line in 3D space?
You'll be curved depending on what gravity is interfering with you, but sure.
All right. So that said, now it comes to, all right, if we're going to take note that we're not going to do that, or that we're going to have hours like that, do you need to spend an entire 4 chapters, 20 paragraphs, whatever, spent on describing what each ship does in a fleet, for instance?
Is that what he asked? Because I'm still not understanding what question we're answering. I'm being serious when I say I just don't understand.
Okay, I think what he's saying is, all right, how do you keep it straight? As in, how do you make sure you know what ship, what main character is on what ship maybe, or what that ship is doing? How do you keep...
Is that the question?
I don't know.
Oh my God. My answer is, I all too often find out that I failed to do so.
You see, Paul Cooley killed a character twice in the black. Terry's done even worse with spacecraft in his universe.
I've renamed ships between books. I've relocated a character's birth planet. I've done all of this thing, and I'm still trying to get myself a story Bible worked up
Yep.
to where I can go back and reference this kind of stuff. And just over the last couple of books, I've been writing them down. Here's a nice pile of papers that show all the stuff that has not been into that file yet. It must be 24 little sheets of paper with things that I've noted that I need to add in there. Just all the details.
Yeah.
You won't keep it straight. Even if you write it all down, you won't keep it straight. You'll
screw up at some point.
Do the best you can, and the reader will understand. That's all you can do.
Now, one way I would address this, and I've heard multiple people talk about David Weber, how involved the stuff can get. Personally, as a reader, I'm going to say as a reader, I'm only interested in the ships that I know about and that have characters on them I care about. I don't really give a shit what happens to the rest of the fleet or anything else. I can go through a thing where I think Terry does with Jared, for instance, sitting on the command bridge, and he's getting telemetry from the other ships, seeing what they're doing, things like that, as well as handling, the weapon systems more or less because he's in command of what his ship needs to do in order to help out or work around these problems. The Bobaverse does this quite well too, because we don't care about what the other ships, we only care about the Bobs. And so he can give Dennis E. Taylor gives very, very short, non-involved descriptions of what those other ships did. And then sometimes he'll wipe out an entire cadre of Bobs and not tell you really what happened, or that he'll kill them all with one sentence, because it just depends on what you're doing. But the bottom line is, as a reader, I only care about the ships where the characters are. I don't really care about much else. It doesn't have to be very involved. You can tell me an enemy ship did something weird, like cloaked, or somehow they went dead in the water for no reason. There's all sorts of things that you can put in there. But really, the space combat, it just depends how involved you want to get with it. It's just like writing military, not military sci-fi, but just straight up military. How involved do you want to get? I personally, as a reader, I don't want to know about every soldier in the company. It'd be too big, especially if I don't give a shit about them. If you have maybe give a shit about them. This is why red shirts exist. That's what they're there for.
This is why you kill off everybody in your novel, so you don't have to know anything about them. They're dead.
And that'll be a very boring book too. I want to know what the characters are. I want to care about the characters. Otherwise, the story doesn't mean shit.
You're talking about Bob. It occurred to me that if Mirror Mirror Universe Bob showed up, his name would be backward and he'd still be Bob.
Correct. He's a palindrome. Isn't that the word? Palindrome?
Might be.
God, this is bad. I'm getting old. I think it's a palindrome. Palindrome? Yes. Yes. I'm correct. I'm technically correct. The best kind of correct. I don't want to know about, we fired 40,000 plasma cannon rounds. They traveled so many light years or whatever to hit something. The Expanse has a lot of this too. And in many cases, the space combat there is very good because it's sparse and at the same time informative. I wouldn't get carried away. I just wouldn't get carried away.
Focus on the relevant details.
Yeah, focus on the relevant details. The rest of it doesn't matter. And
summarize the rest if you must.
So, yeah, and the thing is, the less complex you make it, the easier it will be to keep it straight and keep it at scale and not be boring. Simpler is better. So that's just what I would say in those kind of scenes where, it doesn't really matter. It's a little bit different, but even like describing a dogfight, between just two fighter pilots or whatever else, there's only so much you can do there before it's going to get boring, because it just will. There has to be the ebbs and flows, there have to be the peaks and the troughs. And I think it's really, really difficult to characterize that when you're talking about things that are moving at a ridiculous speed.
I can give you an example of that. I wrote a scene in one of the recent books about a dogfight with fighters. And I didn't really cover what the fighters did, other than the fact that when combat was joined, it was a wild spaghetti fest in 3D with ships going every direction and no one could keep track of anything. And then people died. And seriously, that's virtually how I wrote the scene of space combat there. It did not take long, 2 or 3 paragraphs, and it was over in the story. I didn't cover the detail because the important detail of that was the fact that it was a madhouse. That's the important thing out of it. Not what the ships were doing, just how crazy it was.
Yeah, I think the I would go read the books where they do it well and then apply that to your own stuff. And again, if you want to write a book that's just all about space combat, go for it. I won't be reading it.
It might be like, you could get some of those guys from the golf shows, and now they're teeing up the battle cruiser.
And now let's visit Dreadnought 11375.
Meanwhile, on Dreadnought 375.
Audience, shh, shh, shh. Yeah, no thanks. Let's see. Scotty Douglas asks, gaining exposure on Goodreads, not exposing yourself on Goodreads.
I'm glad he cleared that up.
He said, not exposing yourself on Goodreads. I tried that. All that happens is your account gets closed and the email address you've used gets blocked. He means getting your books noticed, not your enormous lack of decorum.
This is going to be sad, but I say the answer is don't try.
Yep.
Goodreads is a reader thing. If your book strikes a reader, they will promote your stuff there. They will share it with their friends. Really, on there, you should not try to be promoting, is my opinion.
I think you promote by, if you're going to go on Goodreads, let other people see what you're reading. And they may get interested because they may say, oh, I like that book. Let's see what else this person's doing. And then they come across your author profile.
Do a giveaway there. That's about the only kind of promoting I think you should be doing.
Yeah. And from my experience, doing a giveaway has got other issues with it. I really don't think you get much of a return on it. But
I've never done one, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's my experience has been you don't really get much out of it. But if you want to be on Goodreads and you want to interact with folks there, the best thing you can do is just leave reviews of books. That's what it's there for.
Be part of the community. That's any type of environment that you're in. You don't want to be the guy hawking his stuff. You want to be part of the community. And that's really what you should be doing. Goodreads is not a place that you as the author should be hawking their wares, because it's going to get negative attention, and then somebody's going to douche nozzle you.
Yeah, you don't want to be that person, and this goes for Twitter, Facebook, whatever else. You do not want to be that person who 1 out of every 3 things you say is buy my book.
By the way, buy my book.
You don't want to do that. It's just annoying. It's annoying as shit. And eventually those people will tune you out completely, which they probably should. And it also just completely fries, your ability to make connections, because people are just going to stop following you or whatever else. So don't do it.
Marketing, and that's what selling your books is. Marketing is all about making connections, and you don't make connections with people by shoving things in their faces. You just wave it around a little bit and put it out in front of them so that they get to see it 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 8, 10 times, and eventually they'll pay attention.
Yeah.
If they're interested.
This is also why I have an author page on Facebook where I do authorly things. And it's also why I'm not very active on Goodreads at all.
I thought about getting an author page on Facebook, and then I decided that it just wasn't what I wanted to do.
And that's fine. And I mostly post links to podcast episodes and then scientific articles I find. That's mostly what I post there. And it's because it's whatever I'm working on at the time. Some news will grab me and I'll put those things up there, and people come to my page to see what crazy thing, has been sent to me by a listener or a reader or whatever else that's, that I put up there, or interesting article I found. So,
and that's the way it should be. That's what I do on my main page, other than, asking what new pictures of Paul E. Cooley is somebody going to create.
Anyway, so Robert Tilsley, how do you focus on your next book while waiting for editing or publishing of the one before? I'm especially interested in how people did this with their first few novels, or what they've learned to make it easier. Learned? Terry?
It has become easier with time to do that, but it's still hard because your mind is still inside of the novel you just finished, and it's hard to set it aside and focus on another project while you're still doing something, even though you're not doing it with this novel. All you can do is have the mentality of an artist. When you're done with the project, you're done with the project. Set it aside. You abandon a work and it's incomplete. And admittedly, it's still in the process of being edited, but you have to get it out of your mind. You have to move on. That relationship is over. Start a new one.
This has been a big problem for me in the past, and Flames hasn't quite proved that I can get over it, but Flames is a different situation than the rest of the books. I usually go into depression after I finish writing a novel. I usually go into depression. And I think it's all about anxiety of whether or not I've done good work. And so it can be really, really difficult to let go of it. And sometimes even after it's out there, it's difficult for me to let go of it. There's not going to be a tried and true way to do it. What Terry said, yeah, easy to say. But I know writers who will always have a project that's ongoing. So they'll write something and maybe they won't get back to that book for a while, and they'll just dig it out and start going at it. And some people, I can't remember which writers in our audience said this, I don't remember, but what they do is they'll at least start another book while they're working or finishing up the book they're working on. That's the main one. They'll start. It doesn't mean that will necessarily, turn into a big novel or be anything more than a short story, but they'll start something. And I think that that's where I'm kind of lucky, because the next couple of books that I've got in mind are things that I've already started. I've already got 30 or 40,000 words on the next Black book. I've already got, Flames is finally done. Flames was pushed aside for other projects, came back and whooped its ass. Derelict Saga, I know where the story goes next, supposedly, like I have a plan. But the bottom line is I want to write the next book because I want to get that out there because people want it. So that's what's making it easier. It just takes practice, and you just have to be willing to say, you know what? Today, rather than writing on this book, I'm going to go start something else. Even if it's just 500 or 100 words or 1,000 words. Bottom line is you leave it hanging on purpose, because it's easier to come back to it that way. And this is why some people I know also will never finish writing a chapter in a sitting. If they finish writing a chapter, they'll start another chapter and they'll get like a quarter way through it, halfway through it, and stop in the middle of the paragraph and walk away. And that's their strategy. And that's if you're going to use that strategy, then you got to use that strategy for the longer works too. So food for thought. Terry has no problem focusing on the next book because he's looking at his bank account.
That's actually what motivates me. And with the releasing of this latest book, it's been harder because the thing that always distracts me is when a book comes out and is published, then I've got the surge of income, and it makes me think, yeah, I'm doing okay, but I'm not writing for when I'm getting the money. I'm writing for when I'm not getting the money, which is 2 months from now. And so that's the thing that motivates me, is paying bills.
You might want to say that again, because I was coughing like a madman.
Sorry. That's what motivates me, paying the bills.
Paying the bills. Oh boy. Terry, how have you built your mailing list? I just see 3 or 4 different things on here about that.
I cheated.
You cheated. How did you cheat?
When I published my first book, I created the mailing list right before I did so, signed up with 2 email addresses so that I could test it and make sure that it worked, and then stuck it a link to it in my ebooks at the beginning of the story, at the beginning of the thing, right underneath my other works, and as the very next page as soon as the story ended, right on top of my other works.
Right.
And that has proven to be a very successful way to do it.
And I think that is definitely the way to do it. I think that the mailing list is mainly going to happen people clicking on that link or going to your website and finding it. I get quite a few. I imagine quite a few of my mailing list subscribers came to me because of the podcast. So they went to the website and saw that link and signed up for it because they wanted to know when the next Black book or the next Derelict book or what, or maybe just the next thing I wrote is going to be out. They want to know when the audiobook is coming out. They want to know this, that, and the other. Make it easy for them to find it. It's very easy to find mine on my website. It's right there, staring you in the face.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think you have to use as a multi-layered strategy there. Put it in the ebook. Hell, even put it in the trade paperback if you're going to do one of those. Talk about it in the audiobook, and also put it and make sure it's on your website. You were saying
advanced mailing list questions, because one of the things that I'm looking at right now is a lot of people build their mailing list by putting out free books and having people sign up for it. So then they get issues with lots of people, bulk unsubscribing and marking them as spam and whatnot. I've never actually given away a book as an incentive to be on the mailing list. So I've built up the mailing list just from people that have at some point in time been interested enough to go out and click that button to subscribe. That being said, I have 1,300 people. When I sent out the last email, like 1,328 was how many people were on the mailing list. Only 800 of them actually opened the last email. And scanning back through the last few sets, it's been about that. So it's time for me to go in and clean out the people that have not even opened the emails.
Yeah. I think I've got my list is up to 163 now, something like that. I've had it for, I guess, over a year.
And how come you don't have 5 million people signed up for your mailing list?
I'm not Terry Mixon.
Oh, you could be. You could go to a cosplay and dress up as me. That would be horrifying.
Bottom line is, I'm not too worried about my mailing list. It's either going to grow or shrink. The bottom line is that it's not going to grow unless you put more books out. It's not going to grow unless you are being noticed. It is not going to get out there unless you are doing good work. I don't worry about it because it's just another thing out there. And I put it out very infrequently. Like Terry, I only put it out when there's actually news to say. There's actually news. If there's no news, I'm not going to put one out there just to have it out there.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But I think you are underestimating how important the mailing list is. You should make it a priority. If you only have 138 people signed up, you got to figure out why they're not signing up.
They're not signing up because they hate me.
Then you need to make people like you more. No. Because honestly, the reason my books do as well as they do in getting visibility is because I have that surge of people buying it. As my mailing list grows, my success grows. It is literally the key to my success, other than writing good books and marketing them well. That mailing list is what makes the magic happen. I cannot understate this, and I can't understate it at all. It's a huge thing. You need to make the mailing list the most important cornerstone of your marketing, because that's what's going to bring the bacon home.
I disagree.
Oh, of course you do.
Well, I'm in a different universe than you are because I'm podcasting. A lot of those people that are listening to my podcast, there's no reason for them to sign up for a mailing list because I'm going to tell them in the goddamn podcast. And there's no reason for them to be there.
That may be true, but what happens if circumstances change in the future? What happens if you change the way you're doing production and audio becomes less of a priority? Then those people aren't going to hear about new stuff coming from you.
Then hopefully they're going to join the mailing list. I can't make them join the goddamn mailing list.
Pull out a gun. Everyone dies in my novel unless they join the mailing list, or maybe they get to live. I'm not sure.
And I think the other problem with it is in the Sever Press books is it's buried. And in my other works, I didn't have it. So
that's your problem.
And see that, yeah, that is the thing. I think I've only got, 2 or 3 books that actually have the mailing list in there. So I'm in a different situation than Terry is. I should have more. I've noticed that when I started the Derelict books, I did get a surge of people that had joined up, and I don't really ever get unsubscribers. I just don't get. I think I've had one unsubscribe the entire time I've had my mailing list.
How does Severed bury it?
Well, they didn't do the thing that you were doing, as in putting it up front. They are doing that now. So
I was going to say, if they're not doing what I'm doing, you should suggest it because it really works.
Right. And I think
if it's at the first thing and then it's the next thing following the end of the story, right, even before the preview chapter, the author will reap the benefits thereof.
Yeah. And I think it's just a matter of getting more experience and knowing how to do this. You have you're in an indie space where you can do whatever the hell you want. And so I have to do a little more work to get some of those things done with Severed Press. Maybe that's not even an issue now, but I will make it an issue for this next book if it's not done the way I like it. So it's if that mailing list isn't up front and center. It's continue.
One of the other things that's changing is that I've got a short story that's going to go out as part of a free bundle through one of those free linking services with a bunch of other science fiction authors that's going to have a bunch of people sign up for it. It's an experiment. Mm-hmm. And I suspect I'm going to get an ass ton of people to add to my list who are then probably going to, most of them go, screw this, and unsubscribe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to take some trial and error to find it. Like I said, Terry and I are very, very different in what we do. And audio, yes, still is a very large part of my identity. Very large part of my identity and what I do. And there are some people who buy my books because I do the audio. And not the audio books, but the fact that I podcast. So I'm in a different space. And it's really, really difficult to figure out why the mailing list hasn't grown. I haven't been concerned about it because I've got too many other things to worry about than being concerned about, my mailing list is smaller than Terry's. It just sounds like dropping the pants and pulling out a ruler is what it sounds like to me. You shouldn't be comparing
your mailing list to anyone else, but growing your mailing list should be a priority because that means you've got devoted readers that really want to know when your book's coming out, and they're probably going to buy it on the first couple of days, which will get you better ranking, which will get other people to buy your book because they've seen it. So it all folds together. If you've only got 138 people there, I'm going to say again, don't be satisfied with that. Don't say, oh, the people on the podcast are all doing it. Find ways to grow your mailing list because you will thank me later.
Mm-hmm. I'll take that under advisement.
We probably should be looking for a place to cut out because we've been doing this for almost an hour and 20 minutes now.
Almost an hour and 20 minutes?
Since we started the show.
Wow. Excuse me. All right. One more thing. One more. Terry. Oh my God. I got to pronounce this. I'm sorry. Terry Butte. I'm sorry.
Why didn't you spell it?
Buethe.
Booth?
Maybe.
I don't know.
When submitting a manuscript, how important is the title? Do publishers change titles? Can you submit a manuscript without a title?
I suggest you use the novel previously titled Bob.
Real fast, I will go through it this way. Titles are important in the sense that they sort of need to convey a central part of the book. But the thing is, depending on what publisher you're targeting, what genre you're targeting, titles can change radically. Publishers do on occasion change titles. That does happen. I don't know how often it happens, but it does happen. But what I definitely would not do is submit a manuscript without a title. That is something I definitely would not do. I think you got to give it something. My creative camp, we're having a big fight over Flames. Big fight. And Terry started it. Big fight over this freaking title. But I had the title immediately, and all my other works, I've had a working title, and sometimes it's changed. And that's fine. That's the way it should be. But how do you think of it? What's the name of the novel in your mind when you think of it? What's your favorite scene from the book? What's the scene that grabbed you into writing the book? Think about those kinds of things if you're struggling with a title. And then it will just kind of happen.
If you're submitting something, pick the best title you can and submit it.
Yeah.
Don't think that that's going to be the thing that ends your submission. The editor's not going to look at that and go, oh my God, how could he pick that title? Oh no, we can't possibly do anything with that. Don't overthink it. You're good.
Yeah, the more important part when you're submitting that manuscript is going to be your query letter. That's, if you're going to submit that, and your synopsis of the book is what is going to get the editor to read it. It's not going to be your title. I don't think we're wrong on this. I really don't. We might be, but I seriously freaking doubt it. If the query letter is not good, the sample that you send them is not good, they're not going to read it, no matter what it's called. It won't matter. In the long game, anyway, I don't think it would matter. Okay. So we're going to cut this to a close? I
think we should.
All right.
Folks, if you have something else you'd like to see us talk about, you can send us an email at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You could tweet Paul E. Cooley at Paul_E_Cooley on Twitter, but you should probably go to the listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook page, because we have a pinned thread right at the top of it of questions that people would like answers to. That's where all of these questions came from. And we always try to give some answer there on Facebook, and a bunch of the other listeners do as well. That's what it is. It's where everyone gets together to talk about these things and contribute their opinions on it. You can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. If you want to be a patron and help support this podcast so that Paul can stop doing audio editing, you could go to patreon.com/DRS podcast. And of course, we have to mention the good folks at podhoster.com, who host all of the audio versions of this podcast for your listening horror.
Is that what we're doing? Listening horror now?
That's right. Especially if you're going to listen to it from the beginning.
Oh, God, yes.
So we need to go ahead and mention our $10 patrons.
Yes, we will do that right now. These are our $10 patrons as of this moment.
I can't wait to see what names they're going to use this week.
Nathan, can you hear me now, Petty? Drew Bernardi, Robert Slade, John Kilgallen, Chris Winder, Isabel Cushy, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, Jonathan Zarusin, J.R. Hanley, Caleb, I actually do believe this, Caleb, some dumb white guy James, and Sue the Cat Whisperer Bayman. There you go. So if you want to earn exclusive content, get the unexpurgated long-ass versions of this show, early podcast episodes, etc., check us out, patreon.com/DRS podcast. Go look at the goals and everything else, rewards and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. You'll get the episode that we're recording now. If you were a patron, you'd be hearing it, and all the front matter and back matter that don't go into the episode, you'd be hearing that in the next couple of days rather than next week sometime.
You'd hear it tomorrow.
And you'd also be able to participate in the live Patreon show that we're going to have not this weekend, but probably next weekend.
Yes. You could go there and go crazy. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and they do every single time.
Yeah, every single time. It's a good time. All right, I guess we're done for the week, Terry.
It's good, man. Thanks for coming on and joining me.
No, you're very welcome. Now, I guess we'll see y'all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.